30 years ago, in 1994, Star Trek Generations was released, and it was the first of 4 Next Generation films. All Good Things, the brilliant series finale of the show, had aired only a few months earlier. So there was a bit of a rush to get the Next Generation crew on the big screen to continue the Star Trek film franchise, following the retirement of the original series crew in 1991 with Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. Generations was somewhat creatively hobbled by a laundry list of requirements from the studio, including the destruction of the Enterprise D and the landmark meeting of Captains Kirk and Picard, which required a plot contrivance of some kind to make it work. The Nexus was the means by which this meeting would take place, an interdimensional ribbon of energy where time has no meaning and where all dreams come true. The problem with the Nexus is that it wasn't that only time had no meaning, but it seems that plot also had no meaning. Anyway, the Nexus provides motivation for the villain, Soren, played brilliantly by Malcolm McDowell. He wants to meet with his dead family once again, and he's willing to go to extremes, including committing mass murder, to get back to the Nexus. The concept of the ribbon isn't really fleshed out sufficiently in terms of how it works. It's essentially a glorified holodeck, but the entire purpose of the plot device was basically to serve as a means of bridging the gap in time between the 23rd and 24th centuries so that William Shatner and Patrick Stewart could share screen time together. And that's ultimately what it was about. So it felt like the instruction was to simply get Kirk and Picard on screen with any old fantastical sci-fi excuse. The meeting, which certainly was a much anticipated one, frustratingly falls kind of flat, in my opinion. Picard doesn't really learn anything from Kirk. He's just concerned with stopping Soren. Kirk ultimately dies in a really unsatisfactory manner, not on the bridge of a starship, but with a bridge on top of him. So instead of it being Captain on the bridge, it's Bridge on the Captain, as the joke goes. Now, having said that, Kirk did die heroically, basically twice in this film. The second time having helped Picard stop Soren from killing hundreds of millions of people on the planet Viridian 4, a planet that isn't actually visited in the film, and a people we never actually see. All the action takes place on the uninhabited Viridian 3. The Enterprise D is beat up and ultimately destroyed by a sneak attack from a 20-year-old Klingon bird of prey, which the flagship of the Federation should have comfortably been able to account for, regardless as to the bird of prey's ability to fire through the Galaxy-class starship's shields. Data gets to serve as the comic relief in the movie, thanks to the installation of an emotion chip into his brain, which drives him a bit crazy for some of the film, something he has to learn to adapt to. Besides that, the rest of the TNG cast really are just secondary characters, with little of substance to do. What's disappointing is that Kirk doesn't even get brought aboard the Enterprise D, which would have been awesome. He doesn't get to command a starship one last time. He doesn't really get to be Kirk as we knew him. He's brought in purely to pass the torch to Picard and for the crew to quickly move on to their own film franchise without so much as another mention of Kirk and Picard ever meeting. Generations was a disappointment. That said, it does have a few things going for it, and I'm loath to completely write the movie off. For starters, it's a beautiful film to look at. The cinematography by John A. Alonso is stunning. It's no surprise given the man did the cinematography for classic films like Vanishing Point, Chinatown, and Scarface. The film is directed by David Carson, a veteran of several important Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine episodes, including TNG's Yesterday's Enterprise and DS9's pilot episode Emissary. He does a great job. The film's action sequences are fast-paced and nicely conceptualized. Shots are really nicely framed, and there's a genuine cinematic quality to many scenes throughout the film. The visual effects are also top drawer, and they still hold up very well today. Credit to Industrial Light and Magic. Among the highlights of the movie are the soundtrack by Dennis McCarthy. I think Generations might be my favourite Star Trek soundtrack, actually. Haunting in places, atmospheric, quite moving, but with all the grandeur and inspirational pomp you expect from a proper Star Trek score. Despite the story not being quite as strong as it really needed to be, what the film does very well is action set pieces. Though the battle with the Klingons is poorly thought out, because as I say, the Enterprise D should have been able to destroy the bird of prey with ease, at least the battle visually looks and sounds great. Likewise, the film's highlight is probably the crash landing sequence of the Enterprise D. Our beloved starship is destroyed. First, the star drive explodes. The resulting shockwave sends the saucer section into the gravity well of Veridian 3. And then the saucer enters the atmosphere and crashes on the surface. It's spectacular. It's an epic sequence accomplished using miniatures. The crew are thrown around the ship, and the pyrotechnics and set destruction is so well executed, you really buy into this action scene. It leaves a literal big impact when the ship finally comes to a stop. Now, for me, the best part of the film is the opening 10 minutes. The christening of the Enterprise B in the 23rd century. Kirk, Scotty, and Chekhov are guests of honor at the launching of the new Enterprise. But a distress call forces them to take a detour to save some Elorian refugees who are caught in the Nexus, and Kirk must save the day. But in the process, he's swept out into space and recorded as dead, though of course he's actually caught in the Nexus. The opening is so well put together. Kirk is so badass. He's the wise older statesman captain. He's so eager to get back into action again. He's restless as he schools the young, out-of-his-depth Captain Harriman. The tension is brilliant, it's exciting, and then devastating to realise Kirk is dead, or so we think. It's a powerful opening that might be among the best openings of any of the Trek movies. But the rest of the film doesn't live up to that level of intensity and quality. As a result, much of Star Trek Generations falls a little flat. Sometimes it feels like a big epic movie. Other times it feels like it's just a 2-part TV episode. Despite its flaws, and despite these criticisms I'm levelling at it, Generations has got plenty of people who love it. It's a sentimental Christmas movie with many positives to it. It's just saddled with plot holes and an unsatisfying conclusion for Captain Kirk, who deserved so much more. Just as well he's been brought back then. Anyway guys, let me know your thoughts on Star Trek Generations from way back in 1994. Please hit that like button, subscribe for more, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.